Take part in turning your head in the direction of the light. And I'm not speaking in New Age terms. What I'm saying is, can you forget God and instead of praying to a supreme human being, begin to flow in a harmony with the supreme light being? So when I ask you to forget God, I'm not in any way abandoning the supreme. I am turning to the supreme. I'm abandoning the fairy tale of this superhuman being that sits up in an office somewhere. And instead, I am asking you to focus on the supreme light being that is the creator and healer of the universe. Now, let me show you this. If we look at overhead B8, Joan, I'll show you what I am driving at here. What you have always referred to as God is specifically clarified here. The message we have heard and declare unto you, and this should end it. God is light. Now that's from the Bible. God is light. So how do you worship light? There are people going into churches all over the world today to worship God. But really what they have to be doing is worshiping light. How do you do that? How do you talk to light? I mean, how do you pray to light? Would you like to kneel in front of this bulb and ask it something? How do you do that? And the reason you don't know how to communicate with light is because you've never tried to talk to light before. You always talk to people or you talk to pets, but you've never talked to light. But that's the deal. God is light and you are light, so it's light to light. How do you do that? So you'd have to forget everything that you've ever learned, in the same way that scientists have had to forget that the speed of light is constant and can never be changed. They've had to forget that. You have to forget the idea that you've always had all of your life of God and change it to the supreme light being, and then say, if I'm going to survive, I've got to survive. I've got to bring myself into a harmony with this light being. How do I do that? How do you get into a harmony with light? And that causes a tremendous jolt to your traditional values, because what I'm asking you to do is totally turn away from God, because God is a creation of churches and people. And I'm telling you, turn away from that and turn instead to the supreme light being, which is infinite and a creation of no one. And here, I mean, what I'm not asking you to step out of line with the Scriptures, because the Scriptures are very clear. God is light. It's the end of that. But how do you talk to light? How do you communicate with it? If you've been raised the same way I was in the church, you were taught that God is your heavenly Father. And so you came up with a father-type figure. Tell him your troubles. But now we realize that we're telling our troubles to something that is not a human being. This is a light being. They never told us how to tell our troubles to a light being. And all the money you gave to church, all the meetings you went to, they never touched on how does one communicate with light. They said you pray, you sing. What is light? You know, do these bulbs really enjoy the music we have in here? I've never seen the bulbs change. In fact, we turn them out when we play the music. So what do you do? And so is this light being, because you're saying this is the day that the Lord, is this light bouncing all over the place, or is it not even considering stuff like that? This is stuff we made up. We made up all of this stuff because we wouldn't deal with the fact that this thing we call God is actually light. Well, we know how light communicates with us, and there is something in your body that is specifically there for that purpose. It's called the pineal gland of your brain, and it is the light receptor. And the pineal gland, of which Jacob said in the Bible, I have seen God face to face, and I will call the place pineal. Pineal, light receptor. God is light. Pineal, God receptor. I got it. I call the place pineal because it is the light receptor which has received into me the supreme light being, the pineal, the single eye. And remember last week, if you were here, we studied the ancient Egyptian mythology of Aradamus. The story of Aradamus comes from the ancient Egyptian mysteries. He saw the eye face to face, as Jacob did. Aradamus asked for exactly what you have asked for. And Aradamus came much in the same way that you come into this room. He came into a room, and then something had to happen. He had to come forward because it was said to Aradamus, you want this? You prove that you want it. And as you can see, you look around this room, most people cannot prove that they want it because everybody wants this to a degree, but they want the status quo too. They want the stock market, they want, the Blue Cross, and they want, don't change anything. But if you want this, just like Aradamus, you have to do something. And they said to Aradamus, they said, look it, you want to know the mystery of creation. And you people sitting here want to know that too. You ask that the divine illumination and the wisdom for the ages that has been the one gift the gods would shower be entrusted to you. In other words, you want to know. You want clarification. What am I here for? What's going on? What's this all about? So they said to Aradamus, little do you understand of what you ask, but those who know have said that the one who proves worthy may receive the truth. So you stand here, Aradamus, before this eye and prove that you have a right to this teaching that you ask. What is that saying? It's saying you come to meditation and you sit before the all-seeing eye, which is here, and prove to who? To the light that you're entitled to receive this. Most people do not. You have come before the great all-seeing eye when you come inside of yourself and submit yourself to that eye in meditation. You can't just keep going to lectures and lectures and lectures, and that's what happens with religion every day. There's millions of lectures going on in religion today, but very few, if any, come to that all-seeing eye, which is deep within the caverns of your mind. And Aradamus did. And we'll see that on overhead 233. Aradamus did. Look what it says. Aradamus entered the room, gazed upward to the lofty dome. There, floating in space far above his head, he saw a great closed eye surrounded by fleecy clouds and rainbow colors. Do you have on the very first page is a picture of a supernova? Let's look at that. He saw a great closed eye surrounded by fleecy clouds and rainbow colors. And here is the eye in the sky now. Charles, maybe you could just hit the zoom and let it go as far as it'll go until it stops. Okay. That's supernova 1987A, and it's the great eye in the sky, the all-seeing eye. Of course, it's a little different than what Aradamus, in this particular picture, the eye appears to be open. That's not a drawing, incidentally. That's a Hubble photograph, one of the amazing ones that was taken, probably the only one I've ever seen come out like this. But that's supernova. DNA's coming out of this thing. Life-giving elements are coming out of this thing. But this is what's over your head right now. Okay. Now, is this... Okay. So anyhow, he looks up and he sees that the eye is closed. And Aradamus, gazing long upon the wonderful sight, for he knew it was the eye of Horus, the all-seeing eye of the gods. Isn't that interesting? The all-seeing eye of the gods. And we have one in the sky looking down upon the earth right now. And all the scientists know about it. The only ones that don't know about it are religious people. They have no idea. The all-seeing eye of Horus, I wouldn't look at that. I'm a Christian. Okay, how about the single eye of Jesus or the pineal of Jacob? Oh, well, I don't know. But as he stood there, he prayed that the will of the gods might be made known to him, and that in some way he may be found worthy to open that closed eye in the temple of the living God. Now please, the temple is where? Here. The eye is what? The pineal. To open the pineal gland in the temple is what this is taught. This never happened. Just like the crucifixion of Jesus never happened. Just like Jesus himself never happened. Because it does happen. It's much more important than a story. It's talking about existence, life, reality. As he stood there gazing upward, you're meditating, the eyelids suddenly flickered. Then as the great orb slowly opened, the chamber was filled with a dazzling light that seemed to consume the very stones with fire. Aridamus staggered. It seemed as though every atom of his being was scorched by the effulgence of that blinding glow. He instinctively closed his eyes, and now he feared to open them, for in that blaze of splendor, it seemed that only blindness would follow his action. That's meditation, where you totally subdue and close yourself off, and then little by little a strange feeling of peace and calm descended, and he at length dared to open his eyes, only to find that the glare was gone. The entire chamber was bathed in a soft, wondrous glow from the mighty eye in the ceiling. So when the eye had opened and was doing its work, he had to close his eyes. This is where we have to go in our meditation, because we can't look upon this, and because this is going to burn up a lot of what we're familiar and comfortable with. So you have to come before the all-seeing eye, just as Aridamus did. You don't have to go to Egypt, into a chamber. You go within yourself to the chamber of the great light and to the all-seeing eye, which is called the pineal gland, and there you see that supreme light face to face. That is your encounter. But it is not a solution to the problems of earthlings to enlighten and calm you. It is for the earth to encounter that all-cosmic seeing eye. Do you have number 36 on there? We'll just show you that again to the folks on television in particular. There it is. It's not colorful. It's not, it's this overhead black and white. But there you can see this eye. And this is a subject of great interest right now because guess what? According to NASA, it has begun to flicker. This eye is opening, but it's not looking in the chamber of some room in Egypt. It's looking in the chamber of the universe. And it's looking right at you. And unfortunately, most of you are in church somewhere and don't even know that it's flickering. Let's look at overhead 234. Overhead 234 from CNN. Hubble reveals violent supernova shockwave. The slugfest will begin. They found 4 bright knots of superheated gas. In other words, the eye has begun to open. The glowing aftermath of one of the most violent celestial collisions ever witnessed. You want to raise that, Joe? Hubble team members released new images. In the latest pictures taken on February the 2nd, that's the year 2000, the orbiting observatory detected bright knots on the gas ring in places that had dimmed for 10 years. So it's starting to lighten up. The first knot, still glowing, could have been part of the ring stuck closer star, it says. Wow. Now if we consider what we just saw there, they have found 4 newly discovered bright knots of superheated gas. In other words, the eye is opening. And let's go back to 233 for just 1 second. It's the one you had on just last. The eye is opening, and here it says, as he stood there gazing upward, the eyelids suddenly flickered and then slowly opened. What you read from NASA is exactly the same thing, only not done in a mythological sense. It said that these bright knots, which this thing had dimmed for 10 years, suddenly this thing is starting to flicker, starting to open. Look at that. The great orb slowly opened. The chamber was filled with a dazzling light, and Aridamus had to stagger and close his eyes. Now let's look at overhead 235 and read the words of Robert Kirshner, who's an astrophysicist from Hubble. Hubble scientist Robert Kirshner called the first bright knot the opening jab. Now look at his statement. The dancing around is over and the slugfest will begin, said Kirshner, astronomer with the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. And this is an interesting by a guy named Velarda. We'll just to wait and see what lights up next. But the fact new ones lit up suggests that much of the surface is ready to light up. What does that mean to you? Aridamus was sure that the eye was going to light up. It did. The astronomers are now sure that supernova 1987A, the center eye, is about to light up, and it impacts you. It impacts all life. It impacts the entire world. Wow. Look at it again. The fact new ones lit up suggests that much of the surface is ready to light up. What's the Bible say? If your eye be single, your body will fill with light. What about if the single eye in the sky? Then the universe will be filled with light. And what happens to the universe filling with light, as we know, is filling with what we call God. This is the eye of God opening up. Is there a single eye up there? We have proved that there is. You have seen it with your own eyes. Is it mentioned in the Bible? We have proved that it is. Jesus mentioned it. It's mentioned in the Egyptian mythology. It is sending elements to the earth that affect human beings. We have proved it. It is connected to DNA. We have proved that. And is the eye lighting up brighter right now? You bet it is. And the changes that will come upon the earth with Eta Carina and supernova will be awesome. This is light. This is what you call God. But someone else is coming. The electricity, which will be a form of current impacting your body and impacting the earth, will be regulated. If you look with me, look at overhead 60 to some of the works of Blavatsky. There's a reference here to Genesis 32:30 when Jacob calls the place Peniel. As he passed over Peniel, the same as Peniel, the sun rose upon him, he halted upon his thigh. Genesis 32:31. Israel is Jacob. Opposed by his brother Esau is Samael. Do you see that? And the names of Samael are Azazel and Satan, the opposer. Well, if you look here, we see Sama, Sulu, is the root of, it's the word current. Samael is current, opposition, resistance. In electricity, the measure of the degree to which an electric circuit resists electric current flow when a voltage is impressed. And it's expressed in ohms. Ohm for what? A connection between this and the resistor, Samael. Those who are flowing in ohm in meditation will flow upward with the proper current to light the pineal to allow the entrance of this great light, which is God. Those who do not will encounter who? Samael. Samael is on his way now because the great eye is opening and the great electrical current is about to inundate the earth. And there is fire in his eyes. Samael is the same as the boatman Charon, who will either take you to Elysium or to the place of the howling. And upon this earth there will be much howling. And as we spoke earlier, some of the religious leaders, one significant one, is already apologizing for the sins of religion. Howling will come upon the earth. And I beg of you, really, as people who have come here and who do not anymore submit yourself to faith and concepts that may work, I beg of you, this light is coming, and it's coming in your direction. Take this meditation and this watching seriously. Forget it as a religious exercise. Consider it as a matter of life and death, if you would. And how do I know there are going to be trouble? How do I know that Samael will scream his wrath through Eta and supernova? How do I know that? Am I just making it up? I'll show you the evidence of what is going on and where Samael will scream down and cause much havoc. This is what you call God. This is what you've always gone to church for. This is what you take your kids, to Sunday school and all that. This is what but this is real. Eta Carina is the ship speaking healing to the wise men of the earth. The book of life is being opened, but there are those who would defile it, and who have defiled it. And this is where the violence and wrath of God, if you would, will take place. And let me show it to you. You've heard about Armageddon and all this. Let me show you something. Overhead 236 from ABC News. Genetic code landlords. Is business getting in the way of good scientific research? There are 3 billion steps in the ladder of human blueprint. Will these rungs have a landlord with its codes and charges scientists to them? It's a lot like the old gold rush days, it says here. You can start with a little bit of human DNA, put it in a computer, and then literally check each rung of the ladder and see each chemical. The chemicals have letter names. Each rung is being decoded in the right order, and after a few weeks you see thousands of things. If you can figure out even roughly what any particular group of these chemicals do in a human being, the United States government will reward you with a patent. Once the patent issues, for 17 years, you own this strip of DNA, and if scientists want to work on it, you can charge them rent. Do you understand? I don't know if you understand what that says. It's your DNA. And yet people, companies, corporations are getting patents on strands of DNA so that when a scientist needs part of it to cure cancer or cure diabetes, they'll have to get permission from the owner who has a patent on the DNA, which would be some corporation. Look at overhead 237. If a particular stretch of DNA happens to include part of the cure for cancer, then this is very valuable territory. Just the chance to be a DNA landlord has proved to be so desirable that the patent office is now flooded with applications, and the incentive worked. By the end of the year, all 3 billion rungs of the ladder, the entire blueprint of a human being, will probably be decoded. There are so many claims for patents pouring into the office that it could cause big problems. For example, if a team of brilliant scientists thinks that a cure for cancer could be on a particular strip of DNA, if the DNA is patented, it is private property. So they will have to ask who the landlord for the strip is and get permission to work there. What kind of a country is this that even allows such a thing as patenting your DNA? Scientists who are trying to cure cancer, scientists who are trying to cure Alzheimer's will have to get permission from the owner of the patent. As one of the corporate bigwigs say, well, about making money on this, that's the general idea. But why should cancer researchers pay this landlord anything? These days, to own a stake in DNA, how much work do you have to do? Do these landlords arrive and charge? Well, our being here is what created a lot of this information, they say, and they want to get paid for it. We spent millions of dollars. They produce long lists of chemicals, but is this good enough to get landlords started? Shouldn't these companies do real medical research? They're not, in fact, as far as we know, working on therapies for particular genes. You want to go to 238, and we'll just see here. They're in the business of churning out sequences, blah, blah. This means that some of them are grabbing territory on our genes, hoping that scientists will find gold there later. It raises the question, does decoding some genes and making a rough guess about the use result in a speeding up of tests and cures for disease, or will these landlords in the end just make the cures a little more expensive? What you're reading is bizarre, because it is so bizarre simply because what we're talking about is the single eye in the sky, Aridamus, Jesus, Jacob, God, the light of the world, the supreme light being. But look what's going on down on earth. Is everybody on their knees? Is everybody in meditation? Is everybody looking up? Is everybody saying, wow, Alzheimer's is going to be cured? Cancer's going to... No, what are they doing? They're running around trying to make a buck on it. That's all that this is about. It's about the corporations, it's about the capitalists or communists or whatever you want to call them, trying to make a buck on somebody else's misery. And even willing to hold up the progress of the curing of these diseases until the money's there. Look at overhead B27. Let me show you something. Revelation. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every free and bond, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. For all nations have drunk of the wine of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Greed, money. But what about you? You have a temple. You have a chamber of light. You have the all-seeing eye, which in many of you has opened. And now that eye must look to the supreme eye. You must look face to face. Let me just show you this in B8. B8. That was the first one, one of the first ones that you opened. Okay. In B8, it says here, right down here, if you lift that up, and Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. He didn't have to go to a corporation or a company or General Electric or whomever and get permission. There was no patent on anything. We have been searching for the truth. Now the all-seeing eye is upon you. The cosmic eye. Jacob saw the eye personal, but now we all can see the eye in the sky. And as Robert Kirchner said, it's opening its eye. But Jacob said, I have seen God face to face through the pineal. But look what it says in B28. In B28, it's 1 Corinthians 13:12. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as I am known. What? Light to light. You want to take that down, John? For you shall know in the light as you are known in the light. And now the great angle of light from Eta Carina is sending down DNA, and the great correction is upon us. And your temple in the winding corridors in DNA. In Revelation 11:1, the seventh angel, interesting, Eta Carina, gives to the observer a rod to measure the temple of God. I want you to just stay with me, because we're almost finished, but I want you to pay very close attention to what I'm going to say now. Okay? It's important to understand. Measuring the temple means to understand the inner workings of the human life force. All right? Why is that? Now, we're going to look at B29. Acts 7:48. The Most High supreme light being, dwells not in temples made with hands. The Most High dwells not in temple. So the temple then is the mind, where the light dwells. It's inside of you. The inside of you. Okay? Are you with it, Joan? I'm
fine.
Oh, okay. So the seventh angel gives the observer something to measure the temple. Now, please pay attention to this very, very carefully. This is important. If we look at Revelation 11:1, B29, all right? And there was given me a reed like a rod, and the angel said, rise and measure the temple of God and the altar. Now, the temple of God is to be measured. It is to understand the temple of God. And I raise this for a curious purpose. Do you recall when we showed you the overhead about the companies mapping out the human genome and the number of genes? This is one of the companies that is in to get the patents and all of this stuff. Now believed to be. I want you to look at overhead 134. In overhead 134, researchers, humans have more genes than once thought. Human beings may have twice as many genes. Joan, would you raise that? Human beings may have twice as many genes. Insight Pharmaceuticals, this is one of the companies that is getting patents, incidentally, says it estimates humans have 140,000. Then it comes on here, our data confirms there are 140,000 or so. So, you know, of course, that is one of the significant numbers in the book of Revelation, the 144,000. So our data confirms there are 140,000 or so, and I said, you know, we could take liberty and say it's 144,000, you know. Here we see, now, we read in the Bible that 144,000 are saved, so therefore we're led to conclude that the number 144,000 in the Bible that is saved is the genetic structure that scientists are telling us is about to be rescued out of mutation. So let us see the observer in Revelation and how he measures the temple. Look at this. B29. Revelation 21:17. The temple is going to be measured, okay? Down here. And he measured the wall 144 cubits, according to the measure of a man. 144. And we found that the number of genes, 144, and the number saved, 144. The interesting point here is this is the measurement of the temple, and the temple is something that is not made with hands. The temple is that which is inside of you where the all-seeing eye is. Now, what does that tell you? If that is the temple, if 144 is the temple, DNA, what did you just see on the screen a few moments ago? Who is in the temple? The money changers are in the temple, aren't they? The money changers are getting patents on the DNA. The money changers are going to try to see that only if there is a great profit will you receive, which is coming from the supreme light being. In other words, the money changers are in the temple getting patents on your parts to make sure that no healings will take place unless they get a cut of the profit and unless there are big profits. And so the money changers, what will happen to the money changers? Look at B29, or is it B28, I think it is.
That's what I'm looking for here.
B28? Is there a B, it's not a B29 then, huh? No.
You skipped, you got to switch.
Okay. Well, this is the point that, unfortunately, and we did this again last night, and I just wanted to show you. Let me read it to you. And Matthew 21:12. And Jesus went into the temple of God, that's you, and cast out all them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers, and the seats of them that sold doves, and said unto them, It is written, My house shall be called the house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves. So now we know what this is about. I never knew, about the money changers in the temple other than from reading in this book about somebody selling pigeons and whatever, But that has nothing to do with that. But in your day and age, right here, as you're alive, you see the proof of the money changers being in the temple. There is no doubt whatsoever that the money changers are in the temple. And if we look just one more time at 236, overhead 236, there they are. Business is getting in the way of scientific research. Business is getting in the way, right in here with the ladder, the twisted ladder, the serpent, the cosmic serpent. And look at, they're in there, and they're doing business in there. So the money changers are in the temple. And according to the scriptures, it is Jesus who must go into the temple. And what is Jesus? Jesus is the sun, is the light. Did you find it? This is what I wanted to show you. And Jesus went into the temple of God and cast out all of them that sold and bought in the temple. And this is what we were talking about, Don. They're buying and they're selling in the temple right now. They're buying and selling in your temple. And they overthrew the tables and said, It is written, My house, which is the temple, shall be called the house of prayer. That's the place where the pineal communicates with the great eye. But you have made it a den of thieves. So what then is going to happen on this earth? Do you believe any of this stuff? I mean, do you know that there is this all-seeing eye? You do. Do you know that genetic research is about ready to eliminate cancer and all of these diseases? You do. But do you also know that the money changers are lining up so they can get a cut of this? You do. But now you see also that according to the scriptures, something is going to drive them out. And do you know what's going to happen when they're driven out? That means corporations are going to collapse. That means stock markets are going to collapse. That means the medical industry itself may collapse because they're not going to be able to do this anymore. This healing is a cosmic healing. And I promise you that the money changers who have moved into the temple of 144 will be driven away, and there will be screaming, but the celestial cosmic beauty of the 144 will be restored. There will be trouble. So what do you have to do? You have to make sure that you're in your meditation, and you have to make sure that you are closing your eyes as the great eye opens. Now that doesn't mean you walk around with your eyes closed. I mean, let's be reasonable. What I am saying to you is that for communing and communicating with the great eye, that you close your eyes in meditation, you sit in the darkness of meditation, you start watching yourself so that this collapse happens and that you start functioning in a harmony with Etta Karina and especially now Supernova 1987. That for God's sakes, you start taking some of the proof that I've offered here to you seriously and say, this is no longer kidding around. That you start to realize for the first time in your life, you are actually experiencing a time when you know doggone well that indeed I am alive and the money changers are in the temple, because the temple is your DNA and these people are in wheeling and dealing to buy and sell and to own parts of your DNA. And now is this the... And remember something. The Jesus who drives the money changers out of the temple is the same person in the Bible who says, if your eye be single, your body will fill with light. So it is the single eye of Supernova 1987A, opening now to send the light upon the earth, And that one in the Bible who was quoted as speaking of that single eye is the same one who said, I must drive the money changers out of the temple. I must, and don't think it's going to be easy, because at the time when the money changers start to be driven out of the temple, there is going to be lots of trouble here on planet Earth. So you'll either know the truth and you will be in your meditation and you will hold your eyes closed and stay out of it until it is time to open your eyes, and when you open your eyes, the eye will then again be closed. In other words, the violence out of supernova will have ended, and there will be peace upon the earth, and the temple will be restored free of the money changers. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun light on them, nor any heat. For the Lamb which is in the midst of the throne shall feed them. That's your pineal gland, that's your light receptor. And shall lead them unto living fountains of waters, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. So you know what you have to do, and you make the decision whether you wish to do it, or if you're going to stand up on the street and with them, because there's going to be trouble.